The tower was found intact in the San Juan National Forest. The door was locked from the inside. The desk was orderly, and the logbook was open to an entry that ended mid-sentence. Next to it sat a hand-drawn map, blue ink, ranger grid lines, 17 small X marks, each one labeled with a date. The sites were spread in a rough arc around Fire Lookout 7. The dates ran from early November through late March. When the welfare team arrived, only 3 locations were checked. At one of those points, a boot print was documented. Size 11, lug sole, preserved beneath an overhang. No track line to or from the tower was recorded. The remaining 14 marks were left unexamined. In the summer of 1983, the United States Forest Service maintained over 400 active fire lookout towers across the western states. Most were staffed seasonally. Some were occupied year-round. Fire Lookout 7 sat at an elevation of 9,200 feet in the San Juan National Forest, roughly 40 miles southwest of Durango, Colorado. The tower itself was a standard L4 cab design, 14 feet square, windows on all 4 sides, mounted on a 20-foot steel frame. It had been built in 1959. The access road was a single-lane dirt track that switchbacked through dense pine forest for 11 miles before reaching the ridgeline. In winter, that road became impassable. Snow could accumulate to depths of 8 or 9 feet. The nearest maintained highway was over 30 miles away. The nearest occupied structure was a seasonal ranger station, 22 miles to the north. Fire Lookout 7 was designed for isolation. It was built to be alone. The Forest Service rotated staff through the tower in 12-week intervals during fire season, which typically ran from May through September. Outside those months, the tower was supposed to remain vacant. Winterizing procedures were standard: drain the water lines, shut down the propane, lock the shutters, remove perishable supplies. In October of 1982, a lookout named Thomas Shepard completed his final rotation. He followed protocol. He locked the tower and hiked down to the trailhead where a service truck was waiting. His paperwork was filed on October 18, 1982. The tower was marked as closed for the season. That should have been the end of it. But in late November, the Forest Service received a radio transmission. It came through on the emergency frequency assigned to Fire Lookout 7. The message was brief. A male voice reported routine conditions: clear skies, no smoke, temperature holding at 28 degrees. The dispatcher who logged the call assumed it was a mistake, maybe interference from another station. But the transmission used the correct call sign, and the voice matched Thomas Shepard's voice profile from earlier recordings. A second transmission came through on December 9th. Voice, same call sign. This time, the report included snowfall estimates and a request for updated weather projections. The dispatcher notified a regional supervisor. A decision was made to send a welfare check once road conditions allowed. But the winter of 1982 was severe. Snow closed the access road in early December and didn't clear until late March. During that time, transmissions continued. They came irregularly, sometimes weeks apart, always brief, always routine. By February, the Forest Service had logged 11 separate radio calls from Fire Lookout 7. All of them followed standard reporting format. None of them mentioned supplies. None of them requested extraction. When the roads finally cleared in April of 1983, a 2-person team was dispatched to investigate. They reached the tower on April 14th. What they found was documented in an incident report filed 3 days later. The tower was intact, no structural damage, no signs of forced entry. The door was locked from the inside. When they opened it, the interior was orderly. The logbook sat open on the desk. The last entry was dated April 11, 1983, 3 days before their arrival. It ended mid-sentence. But before we examine that final entry, we need to go back to the beginning. To understand what was found in that tower, you have to start with what was written. The logbook recovered from Fire Lookout 7 contained 73 pages of handwritten entries. They were written in blue ballpoint pen. The handwriting matched Thomas Shepard's signature from his employment records. The first entry is dated October 20th, 1982, 2 days after the tower was officially closed. Entry 1, October 20th, 1982. Stayed on for personal reasons. Paperwork shows me off-site, but I radioed clearance with dispatch. Everything by the book, weather holding clear. First snow expected in a week or so. I've got enough supplies to last until mid-November if I'm careful. Propane is 3/4 full. Waterline drained as per protocol, but I've got 30 gallons in reserve containers. The solitude up here is worth the cold. Visibility today is exceptional. I can see all the way to the La Plata range. No smoke, no aircraft, just wind and sky. This is what I came here for. The tone of that entry is unremarkable. A man choosing to extend his stay in a remote location. It happens. Lookouts sometimes remain at their posts beyond their contracted period, especially those who prefer isolation. The Forest Service allows it under certain conditions. Shepard had radioed dispatch. He had supplies. He was experienced. There was no reason for concern. The next several entries follow the same pattern. Routine weather observations, notes on temperature and wind speed. References to wildlife, mostly elk and ravens. But on October 29th, the tone shifts. Entry 2, October 29th, 1982. Snow came early, 16 inches in the last 48 hours. Road is gone. I'm locked in now until spring melt, but I expected that. Radio dispatch to confirm. They acknowledged. No concern on their end. Something strange this morning. Woke up to find boot prints in the snow outside the tower. They circle the base 3 times, then stop. No trail leading in, no trail leading out, just the circles. I checked my own boots, tread doesn't match. Checked the perimeter on foot. No other tracks anywhere within 200 yards. I thought maybe it snowed after someone passed through, covering their approach and exit. But the prints are clean, crisp edges, recent. I don't know what to make of it. Weather tonight is dropping fast. 18 degrees at sunset. Barometric pressure falling. Might get another storm by Thursday. I keep looking at those prints. That entry is where the logbook begins to change. Not dramatically, not yet. But the shift is there. Shepard was a trained observer. He understood tracking, he understood snow, and he couldn't explain what he saw. The next entry is dated November 2nd, 4 days later. Entry 3, November 2nd, 1982. The prints returned, same pattern. 3 circles around the base of the tower, no approach, no departure. This time, I stayed awake to watch. I sat by the south window from midnight until dawn. I had a clear view of the snow below. The moon was nearly full. Visibility was good. At 3:47 a.m., I saw movement. Not a person, not an animal. The snow displaced. That's the only way I can describe it. Like something was pressing down on it, but I couldn't see what. The prints formed one at a time, slowly, methodically. Each step took maybe 5 or 6 seconds. I watched the entire circuit, 3 full loops. Then it stopped. I went outside at first light. The prints were there. Same depth as before. Same tread pattern. I measured them. Size 11 boot. Standard lug sole. I wear size 10. There's no one else up here. I checked my supplies this afternoon. Everything is accounted for. The door was locked. The windows are secure. Nothing inside has been moved, but I can't explain the prints. I tried the radio. Dispatch didn't answer. I'll try again tomorrow. The entry ends there. For the next 2 weeks, Shepard's logs return to routine observations. Weather data, wind direction, temperature fluctuations. He mentions the prints only once more, on November 7th. He notes that fresh snow covered them. He does not report seeing them again. But on November 19th, the logbook records something else. Heard knocking last night. 3 knocks, pause, 3 more knocks. It repeated for about 20 minutes. It was coming from below the tower, directly beneath the floor. I went outside with a flashlight. Nothing there, no tracks, no animals. The knocking stopped as soon as I opened the door. It started again an hour after I came back inside. I didn't go out the second time. The description is calm, matter of fact. But the pattern is clear. Something was changing. By December, the entries had become shorter, less detailed. Shepard still recorded weather data, but his personal observations grew sparse. On December 24th, he wrote a single line. It's watching from the tree line now. He did not elaborate. The next entry is dated January 11th, 1983, 18 days later. When people read accounts like this, the first instinct is to assume something unexplainable, but isolation does strange things to the mind, and the conditions at Fire Lookout 7 were extreme. Shepard had been alone at high altitude for over 2 months by the time he wrote about the knocking. The psychological effects of prolonged isolation are well documented. Sensory deprivation can cause auditory hallucinations. The brain, starved for input, begins to create its own. Knocking sounds are common, so are footsteps. The phenomenon is called presence hallucination. It occurs when the brain interprets ambiguous stimuli as another person. Shadows become figures, wind becomes voices, silence becomes sound. At high altitude, the risk increases. Reduced oxygen levels affect cognition. Decision-making deteriorates. Memory becomes unreliable. Hypothermia can set in gradually, without the victim realizing it. Early-stage hypothermia causes confusion, irritability, and impaired judgment. People in this state often remove clothing because they feel hot, even though they're freezing. They wander away from shelter. They make irrational decisions. Shepard had propane heat, but if he was rationing fuel to conserve supplies, he may have allowed his core temperature to drop without noticing. The boot prints present another logical explanation. Snow is not static. It shifts with temperature changes. It compacts under its own weight. Wind can create depressions that resemble footprints, especially in crusted snow. Shepard observed the prints at night, under moonlight. The human eye is highly susceptible to pareidolia in low-light conditions. The brain sees patterns where none exist. A random configuration of shadows and snow becomes a boot print, and once the brain locks onto that interpretation, it's difficult to see anything else. The knocking could have been structural. Lookout towers are designed to withstand high winds, but they flex and settle. Metal contracts in extreme cold. Joints creak, bolts shift. At night, when other sounds are absent, these noises become amplified. Shepard described the knocking as rhythmic. That's consistent with thermal expansion and contraction. Metal cools at predictable intervals. The 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks pattern could easily be the tower itself, cooling in stages. Wildlife also provides answers. Pine martens are active in winter. They're curious animals, and they're known to investigate human structures. A marten moving beneath the tower could produce knocking sounds as it navigates the support beams. Ravens, too, are persistent. They roost in sheltered areas and will return to the same location night after night. A raven tapping on metal to dislodge ice or access food could explain the rhythmic pattern Shepard described. These explanations are not speculative. They are documented behaviors. They account for the observations without requiring anything unusual. And yet, when the team arrived at Fire Lookout 7 in April, they found something that doesn't fit neatly into any of those explanations. The logbook was open to the final entry, but there were other items on the desk: a compass, a flashlight, and a hand-drawn map. The map showed the area surrounding the tower. It was detailed. Shepard had marked terrain features, tree lines, and elevation contours, but he had also marked locations, 17 of them, each marked with a small X. Next to each X, he had written a date. The dates ranged from November 4th, 1982 to March 30th, 1983. The incident report noted that the team hiked to 3 of the marked locations. At the first site, they found nothing unusual. At the second, they found a boot print, preserved in frozen mud beneath an overhang, size 11, lug sole. At the third site, approximately 200 yards northeast of the tower, they found a tree, a lodgepole pine, roughly 40 feet tall. The bark had been stripped away in a vertical line from the base to a height of about 6 feet. The wood beneath was smooth, no tool marks, no claw marks, just smooth, exposed wood. The team photographed it. The photograph is included in the incident report. No explanation is offered. The Forest Service conducted a formal review. They interviewed Shepard's family. They examined his medical records. They consulted with psychologists and wilderness survival experts. The conclusion was inconclusive. Shepard had been in good health prior to his extended stay. He had no history of mental illness. His radio transmissions, when reviewed, showed no signs of distress or disorientation. The final transmission was received on April 9th, 2 days before the last logbook entry, 5 days before the team arrived. In that transmission, Shepard reported clear skies and stable conditions. His voice was calm. The logbook recovered from the tower now resides in a Forest Service archive facility in Colorado. It is not available to the public. Fire Lookout 7 remained operational until 1991, when it was decommissioned due to budget cuts. The tower still stands. It is accessible by trail during summer months. Hikers occasionally visit. Some leave notes in a weatherproof box that was installed near the base. The notes describe the view, the isolation, the silence. No one has reported anything unusual, but the map Shepard drew, the one with 17 marked locations, has never been fully investigated. The Forest Service explored 3 sites. 14 remain unexamined. The coordinates are recorded. The dates are documented. But no follow-up expedition was ever authorized. And Thomas Shepard's final logbook entry, the one that ended mid-sentence on April 11, 1983, has never been explained. It reads, "I understand now. It's not trying to get in, it's trying to..."